Good evening, everyone. I would first like to thank Mr. Ambassador, Pimo, Pgift, and the Royal Thai Embassy in general for giving us this opportunity to connect with other Thai Americans and learn more about the issues related to to U.S.-Thai relations. Next, I am grateful to Mary Sue Bissell, Zev Moses, Christina Durham, Alec Bowman, and Temi Adeyemi from the U.S. Asia Institute for organizing orientation and placing us with our internships. Finally, thank you to Christina Chang and Julie Wu from APIA Vote for giving me the opportunity to serve the Thai American community and the greater AAPI, that is Asian American Pacific Islander community at large. My name is Sai-kit Jeremy Lee. I am from Salt Lake City, Utah, and graduated from the George Washington University in Asian Studies and Chinese Language and Literature. I wasn't exposed to the Thai American community growing up outside of my family. And even then, it was only my mom. Yet, even with that lack of Thai American community, my mom made sure that I knew that I was Thai. Every year until second grade, she would take time off from work, go up to my teacher and ask, hey, can I teach this class about Thai culture? So maybe at the time I was a little bit embarrassed, but she would come in and bring food. She would talk about our history and our culture. She would even do a dance demonstration. And so I was never made fun of for being Asian or for being Thai. And like Ashley mentioned, because of my mother, maybe about only half the time did people think that Taiwan and Thailand were the same place. So when it was finally time for me to go to GW, I was so excited. I was finally going to be in the capital of the US. There was going to be diversity. I was going to meet other Thai Americans. I did not. That did not happen, whether it be at school, on Capitol Hill where I interned, or at the White House where I interned. Nothing. No Thai Americans. It wasn't until now, for the first time through TANIP, have I met other Thai Americans. Not just other Thai Americans who I guess exist, but Thai Americans who care about US-Thai relations and care about our communities. Yeah, the reality is our voices aren't heard. When I was on Capitol Hill, no one was advocating for, or for the most part, I didn't see other Thai Americans advocating for us. And when I was in the nonprofit sector advocating for the AAPI community at large, the Thai American voice was rarely heard. But yeah, let me tell you about our internship. So we started the summer off with a great orientation hosted by USAI. We got to hear from many different people on Capitol Hill, some positions I honestly never thought about before, so very grateful for that. I was grateful to learn about the impact that we as individuals could have, whether we be on the Hill, in a think tank, or even working at a nonprofit like I did. But I think, as some of my colleagues had mentioned, my favorite part of this internship at first was getting to meet Thai people. TANIP was everything I expected and more. As for the actual internship portion, I appreciate that APIA Vote allowed me to dive deeper into the issues that I already knew about and cared about. For example, I was able to work on an Asian American voter report that allowed me to understand the disparities of voting access within the AAPI community, especially the LEP community, that is, those who are limited English proficient. So for example, this is a really big problem in the Thai community. 32.2% of Thai Americans are limited English proficient. That means even if they wanted to vote, they have obstacles. But working with the Thai American community is, of course, not straightforward. It's not as easy as just translating everything into Thai, because another 42% of Thai Americans speak no Thai, or maybe, like myself, very little Thai. But I also had hope through this report, because there are states, like the state of Nevada, which are making strides to create more linguistically and culturally appropriate resources so that Thai Americans and other Asian Americans can vote and have access to government materials. I also learned about the importance of redistricting and cracking, specifically the ways that redistricting can hurt our communities. For example, in Korea, after the LA riots, the Korean Americans there were not able to get help from the government and their local representatives because their community was broken up into 4 separate districts. Is that happening to our community? And do we care? I wonder what other ways the Thai American community has been hurt and affected in the past, and how we have overlooked our community. I'm also grateful for the NCAPA brown bags I was able to attend, where I was able to learn about a whole slew of different topics from APIA thought leaders all over the nation. I was able to learn about the importance of environmentalism and of digital literacy. And the most rewarding part of working at API Vote was being able to work on a Thai American community report, the first of its kind. I was so excited when Christina and Julie said I could do it. I was actually not sure if they would approve of it, but they did. And I can only imagine the impact that this report will have on the Thai American community at large, but also Thai Americans such as myself. Through this report, I'll tell you more about it later, but through this report, I am excited to announce that there's already change. I was invited to stay in touch with organizations such as National ACE, Thai CDC, and even APIA Vote as we continue to better serve Thais in America. We, being Thai Americans, have been here since 1829 when Chang and Eng Bunker came over, the Siamese twins. Yet even though we're here and we've continued to have a steady stream of immigration, we are still underrepresented. There are currently 342,917 Thais living in the US as of the 2019 census. But we are underrepresented in a slew of fields. For example, in fields such as education, business, professional management, and scientific management, there are only 10.5% of the Thai American community are in those fields, while in the greater Asian American community, they make up 15.9% of that. But at the same time, Thai Americans make up a disproportionate amount of certain fields, such as food service. I'm sure most of you, if not all, have been to a Thai restaurant or love Thai food. And that is great, but we are disproportionately represented there. 26.2% of the Thai population are in food service, while only 10.6% of the greater Asian American population are in that field. As we look towards the future, we must continue to empower young Thai Americans through a program like TANIP so that our communities can have a seat at the table nationally and internationally and have representation in diverse industries. And let me tell you real quick about this report. One of my key takeaways from the Thai American report was that our community needs to have pathways towards leadership. We need to have our stories heard and be empowered in our stories. And we need spaces to connect with each other so that we can encourage each other. TANIP has allowed me and my fellow interns to experience this. As much as we learn from our placements and from the embassy, we learned so much from each other too. Honestly, I was so nervous coming into TANIP. Like, we had a group chat. I did not participate because I was like, I don't know if I am going to be friends with these people. I thought I would be an outsider and just have a professional relationship with these folks. But my fears were quickly squashed during orientation when Zev asked a question to us. How many of you were part of a Thai Student Association? Of course, no one raised their hand. Literally, for most of us, this is the first time we met another Thai American outside of our family. Through them, I learned that the sense of loneliness we feel when we are the only Thai person in a room is universal. As I heard stories about my fellow interns growing up all over the US and world, I learned more about myself. I heard pieces of the stories of my families and my own narrative in their stories. For the first time, I didn't feel out of place. I am grateful for the ways my fellow TANIP participants have challenged me to grow academically, professionally, and culturally. I look forward to seeing the ways each and every one of us will influence the world and how we will continue to be in each other's networks. And now, one final statement towards any young Thai Americans on the stream right now, I just want you to know that like you are not alone. There are other Thai people out there who care about what you care about. There are people who care about you. And I pray and I hope and I dream that one day there will be more Thai American role models for us. I hope that maybe even our cohort can be role models for the future youth of this country. Thank you.